I do think, though, that there's a role for aggregation and curation and assembly of these wonderful small pieces loosely joined. Again, I'm thinking of the web. This is an early page of a view of Yahoo from back in 1996. You guys remember Yahoo was just a catalog. You know, it was a catalog of all the web pages out there, and you know, they've grown into something very different. But this is how we kept track. And I have to, you know, I have a sympathy for this because my company started the very first web catalog with something called the Global Network Navigator in 1993. But you know, as this thing grew, we had to start to organize the information that was out there. It wasn't enough for the NCSA homepage, which was the original aggregation point. It announced, hey, there's a new website today. Yeah, because in those days, you literally could go to this announcement and you'd get, oh yeah, there were 3 new websites created today. Yeah, and you could keep up with it simply by that. And then Yahoo built this catalog, and then of course, you know, we got to the age of search engines because it was just beyond the capabilities of a catalog. But we have this too with software projects. The latest you know, wonderful repository for software projects is GitHub. You know, place to search, place to find things. Of course, we have that in the iPhone world with the App Store. We have it in Android world with the Android Market. And these things have got to be better. But I think it's also true that when you think about Civil Society 2.0, it's going to be important to say, well, what are the pieces? Could we pull them together in a way that makes them more useful? And for that, I just want to remind you also, it's from an earlier technology generation, but the role of Linux. You know, Linux distributions like Red Hat were a way of saying, oh yeah, there are hundreds of thousands of free software programs. And if you go to a site like SourceForge, literally there are hundreds of thousands. And they said, you know, we're going to take these 3,000 that we think are really good, and we're going to package them up and we're going to put them together. And so we've been thinking a little bit about this. This is in a domestic context. I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Code for America, which is a service year program that goes and builds civic software for cities. But we are, as we thought about it, we said, well, we have to have a mechanism for sharing the code between cities. And so we came up with another nonprofit that we're starting called Civic Commons. Actually, I see Phil Ashlock and Carl Fogel sitting down there in the front row. Both of them are pretty central to working on this project. You know, it's really saying, hey, we're going to build kind of a civic stack. You know, when we say, okay, we're going to get San Francisco to open source their master address database, and we're going to help this other city to develop this other piece of software, and we're going to have them open source that. We're going to bring it together into a distribution, you know, that would be a single place that people can go, and they can go and they can look and say, well, what software is there that's been made available? So the software that runs the Federal Register might be useful to a state, might be useful to a city. The guys who built that have made it available. I can't scroll down, but if you go there, we're starting to build this civic stack, and we've certainly imagined that this same model could be applied eventually to Civil Society 2.0 areas beyond what we're focused on right now. You could say, oh yeah, this is the disaster stack. You know, these are all the pieces. Here's how you download them. Because of course, you know, what was remarkable about the effort in Haiti is also its weakness, because it was this extraordinary assemblage of volunteers who rose to a one-time mission. And if this really is to succeed, it has to be packaged in such a way that people can say, I'm ready. I have that for my country. You know, I mean, you know, we're not having right now a comparable effort for what's happening in Indonesia. You know, and the reason is because we haven't taken that next stage of turning this in some ways into a product that has support, that has training, that has a place where people can say, oh yeah, I know how all the pieces work together. And I think that's one of the platform opportunities in this Civil Society 2.0, is to look at some of the areas, whether it's elections, whether it's disaster relief, or whether it's just running a civil society. And I think some of the things we're doing with Code for America and Open Plans, which is another nonprofit working on transportation, and which is also one of the founders of Civic Commons. All this software, hopefully that will eventually be of use around the world as well. And just, hey, how do you run a government? How do you, manage transportation? How do you manage sanitation? We'll eventually, hopefully, have a civic stack of software that might be just as useful in Nairobi as it is in Chicago.